Greetings, bienvenue, come on in.
Sit on down.
Pokemon Legends ZA unveiled to the world 45 brand new Mega Evolutions, each revealed to varying reactions. But with last week's release of the official 2D renders, I'm kind of curious. Were these Pokemon just given a bad hand by having the 3D sprites unveiled first and they're truly good designs, or are they questionable the whole way through? That's exactly what we're looking at today as we grade whether 3D or 2D renderings take the cake on each of the new Megas. Without much further ado, let's hop right into today's video. So first up is Mega Pikachu. I'm sorry, Mega Raichu X. It's one of those designs that I had a hard time with initially with the 3D render release, but as we moved over into the 2D render, it is so abhorrently yellow. It is so vibrant in that color that it is off-putting. And then seeing that brown juxtaposed with that black of the tail to the hands and feet, it feels like there's so much going on here that the Pokemon Company didn't know what to do and fell back onto just color it like Pikachu, because then at least we're safe. It's a design that in the 3D model, a lot of that could be hidden a little bit better, but in the 2D version, it's so evident, and I have to give it to 3D, just for the sake of a lot of these things that are really off-putting being better hidden within that rendering. Moving on to Mega Raichu Y, there's a lot that I love about this design. There's a lot that I loved in the initial 3D render, and we're kind of lucky that with these first two, we actually got to see more artwork of them with that Mega Dimensions DLC kind of announcement image. So these are some designs that we've seen before in their 2D variation, and this one I actually absolutely love. I mean, the things that Raichu as a set Pokemon did, in my opinion, wrong, this one takes those and morphs them into ways that work. I was always off-put by the curly ears of Raichu. Here, they're kind of moved and transformed into a different thing that I think really works, and bringing in that Alolan Raichu tail I think provides so much more context for the design. I do wish that the yellow cheeks were a different color so that they could be a little bit more visual, but in the 2D render they are more visual than what we saw in the 3D. In the 3D it's a little bit harder to make out. Here it's very clear, very evident. I wish that it was just a little bit more so. So this one's gonna go to the 2D sprite. Fantastic stuff. Next up, we have Mega Clefable, and I so much dig this 2D version of the artwork. The 3D version really left a lot to be determined, and I feel like with those designs in 3D, everything comes across kind of puffy and rounder. With this one, it's so cool to see that there is a different shape language being used for the body. It's a little bit thinner, a little bit leaner, and I feel like that separates this Clefable out from what the initial and regular Clefable is. The wings are cool. I love that they're a little bit more downplayed, it feels like, in the 2D version, whereas in the 3D they are just so big and vibrant that they take up so much of the space. I know that a lot of these designs too, it's just kind of the angle that they're seen at or the way that the lighting is hitting them, but when looking at these designs and kind of how they're announced and released to the world, those things become very important. And here, this 2D sprite fixes a lot of the issues that I saw with the 3D version by making it more exciting. I mean, I didn't see a lot of issues with the 3D version, I'll make that clear, but this one really amps up all of the things that made that version feel like its own Mega Pokemon, right? It's a lot less round here, and it's got those ears that you can actually kind of see the inside of. A little off-putting, but it definitely provides a new texture to the Pokemon, which I dig a lot. I'm gonna go ahead and give this one to the 2D sprite, obviously. This is the one, right? This is the one that kind of started this whole mess, this whole conversation. I know some people will say it was Dragonite. For me, and as far as I've seen a lot more of the conversation happen, it was with Victory Bell. The fact that it was so bizarrely different than what we'd seen for the formula for Megas, it threw so many people for a loop. And the 2D version, I kind of understand a little bit better. I feel like it may just be that we're far enough away from that release that we're all coping and beginning to accept that this is what Megas look like now, but I prefer the 2D version better than the 3D version. Again, I don't know if that's the rainbow lighting that they use on the Megas in the 3D version or what. I love that it suddenly becomes so much more simple. I think that's what it is with the 3D renders and the lighting styles that they're choosing to use, as well as kind of emphasizing those hyper rounded edges with this bulbous body. It feels like there's so much going on. Whereas here, it just feels like Pokemon art. It just feels like a Pokemon. If you would have told me, hey, this is a Victory Bell variant, I wouldn't be upset. And now that you're telling me like, hey, it's a Mega, and I see the 2D sprite for it, I'm still okay with that. I feel like this one's definitely going to the 2D sprite, because the 3D, using that roundness and that bulbous energy, again, makes everything look puffier, and this is already such a puffy Pokemon that it feels like it's over the top, whereas here, it's downplayed so much better. Now, if there was a Pokemon that divided fans pretty heavily, it would probably be Mega Starmie. This thing, with its wild and wackiness, when it was first kind of leaked, the idea of like Starmie gets longer legs, so many people were like, no, wrong, that's bad. And then the reveal was made, and so many people were like, yeah, no, wrong, that's bad. And then we got to see it in animation, and people said, I kind of get it. I understand. It's that alien guy in an alien suit, kaiju type of feel, type of vibe. And here with the rendering, going with so much shine and so much white space within the coloring really emphasizes that. I think that we've slowly moved from this is terrible, this is bad, I understand it's a joke, but it's a bad joke, into I can fully accept this. I think that transition has helped this Pokemon substantially, and the 2D render helps it even more. It's gonna go to the 2D for this one too. Okay, coming up we have Mega Dragonite. Again, one that really divided people. I really like the idea behind the Pokemon. I think the 3D render was perfectly fine. In fact, the only time that I really take issue with the design of Mega Dragonite is realistically the fans. It's realistically the people who have issue with the design that I take issue with. I like the design a lot. I think that it is wacky and weird, and that definitely seems like it's the direction that Pokemon's wanting to go with these Mega designs, is make them a little bit more wacky, but balance that out with some of our darker entries, which we'll see in just a moment. But this feels friendly, it feels fun, it feels like the natural progression of Dragonite. Do I wish that they would have brought in more Dragonair qualities? For sure, but it's okay. It works, and I feel like it suffices everything that it's supposed to. Now, between the 3D and the 2D sprite, I am just going on personal preference. I liked Mega Dragonite a lot. I like the 2D variation of the artwork a lot, and it's kind of a toss-up here. I don't know if I'm allowed to do that. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that it's a tie or a toss-up or whatever, but here I really like both. I don't think that there was that big of a disparity between the two, enough that I would have any form of vote on it. Anything that I'm voting for on here is going to be very, very nitpicky. For example, I think that the 2D gets a little bit weaker in the way that the orb and like the shininess of that portion of the body is rendered. I think the 3D does that really, really well, but that's also just the nature of 3D, having that partial translucency and having the ability to create that three-dimensional shine to objects like that. I mean, a sphere is three-dimensional, so obviously it's going to do a lot better job at that, but at the same time, where the 3D lacks is that it's also obscuring the design a lot. Very simple design, obscured by kind of the lighting effects that were chosen for that 3D design. So the things that make it for or against one or the other are things that are inherent to both of the art styles. Okay, this one I have so much to say and also so little to say. This is Mega Meganium, and I did not like the Mega for this Pokemon. I didn't, because it felt so stuffy. Like, it felt like the neck was like stuff, like the Pokemon couldn't move. But in the 2D sprite, there is so much more limberness, so much more life and vibrancy in the motion. I love that we're able to see that gradient from the feet up into the legs so mumuch clearer. It feels like this Pokemon isn't stuck to one pose with that neck thing kind of suffocating it. It feels more lively, more alive. There's so much going on here that I love. I also love that it's not clouded by that lighting effect, that we're able to see that vibrant white of the lower neck petals. I think it's a beautiful color, beautiful set of color variation between the Pokemon's parts there, and I feel like so much of that is lost in the effects that are used for that 3D unveiling. So Meganium 2D, Mega Meganium 2D wins it, takes it. This is probably the best and strongest fix from 3D to 2D is with Mega Meganium. It just feels so much less constricted, and I think that was my biggest gripe, fully wiped off the table by this 2D render. Okay, Mega Emboar. Again, when we move from 3D to 2D, everything gets so much thinner. I understood that Emboar was like taller and stretched out, but it was hard to decipher. I didn't know if I tricked myself into believing that or if that was the case. With the 2D render, it is so much more evident. It is so much more clearly seen that it's meant to have kind of a face on the chest. Everything about this design in 3D was kind of a question. Is it taller? Is it thinner? I can't really tell. Is there a face or meant to be this face type of emblem to the body? I can't really tell. What's the staff supposed to look like? Hard to tell. All of that becomes so much clearer in the 2D render, which is kind of the purpose of these renders. But man, it really makes me go from being like Emboar is my least favorite of the 3 starters to it's a potential candidate for second, maybe even first, just based on the 2D render alone. So it definitely gets a big increase and pump up in what I feel about it because of this 2D render. So 2D takes it. Oh, look what they did to my boy. Flat out, the 3D is better. Neither are great. The designs are awful. The take on how to do a mega that involves the idea of the pre-evolution, awful. There are so many artists who have done this idea better, who are Fakemon artists. But this design, the design itself, I do not like. I will say the 2D version, given that there's no animation, given that there's no three-dimensional like the bob of the head or anything like that, which again, things inherent to the 3D size, this just feels lost. It feels like we don't know what this design is meant to be in the 2D form. And it's because so much of what it is comes from the 3D, comes from the animation. It was a design built and designed around the idea that it was going to be a 3D sprite. So seeing it in 2D, it loses so much. And that is a problem for the company. When they design these Pokemon, you need to take into account that there will be 3D versions, there will be 2D versions. Do not design a Pokemon that can only be seen in one way. Do not design a Pokemon that can only exist in one art format. So here, I am saddened, and I'm gonna go ahead and say that this goes to 3D by the slightest margin, because it was not a Pokemon that feels designed to function in a 2D space at all. It feels, again, I think lost is the best way that I can put it. There's design elements here for stuff that cannot be captured in this format, which is unfortunate that that was the design element, and that is the biggest sticking point for this look is A, it's bad, and B, in 2D, it doesn't fulfill what it's meant to function as. Mega Skarmory, I always dug. I know that some people were really concerned about it, like it's just Skarmory but gold. I mean, even when like the leaks came out, that was kind of the deciding factor, was like, and Skarmory becomes gold. But I think in the 2D sprite, you can see so many differences. You can see that the eye cut is different. You can see that the wings are so much more expanded. Of course, the feet are massive. The way that the gold and the armor is kind of cut is so much more distinct with the Mega. There's small differences, but they're differences enough that you can't really see them in the 3D sprite. You have to wait until you get to the 2D and you can actually look at them in this format, that it's like, oh, hey, no, there are a lot of differences with this Mega form, more so than some of our other Megas. I think specifically of like Mega Kangaskhan, and how people were like, oh yeah, it gets a baby, the baby comes out, that's super cool, really fun Mega, but Kangaskhan ultimately remains unchanged. Skarmory gets some distinct changes that with the 3D renderings, we couldn't really pinpoint out. So Skarmory 2D does so much for you. The ability to kind of look and analyze without having to go through that fuzz of the 3D rendering and the roundness and that lighting effect. So much is done for it in the 2D, and I'm so glad that they chose with these official renders not to include that rainbow outline. I think it would have been easy for them to do. I'm glad that they did not, because I think that the clarity of understanding the Pokemon becomes so much more evident in my, at least, enjoyment of it. If I don't understand the Pokemon and what I'm looking at, I don't like it. But with the 2D renderings, it becomes more evident things that I can find that I enjoy. So, Skarmory, 2D works for you. You look good in it. Keep it up. Just messed up my finger real bad. I just messed up my finger real bad. Middle. Mega Chimecho. Wow, love it. The 3D rendering, I think, does a lot for it. The 2D, I think it's just kind of the positioning. It's a facing straight forward Pokemon. Pokemon doesn't do that a ton with their official renders, but I'm noticing that the Mega officials, they've done that a couple times. I think Mega Emboar was facing forward as well, and Mega Chimecho facing forward. I think that it's definitely a design that is, obviously the shape is meant to be kind of flat, and so having the 3D render of it being like moving in the wind and having it look, you know, where you can see the multiple angles works really well. I think the thing that the 2D does really well is it captures that shiny gold so much better. I feel like the 3D renders almost feels like there's a matte finish to stuff. That shine isn't quite as visible. We see it done successfully in other Pokemon, but here it feels like there's a lot left off. Whereas that gold texture is really captured with the 2D. Despite that, I'm gonna have to give this one to the 3D render. The 3D render, I think, captures the idea of what this thing is, because it is a Pokemon that's designed to have so much that's 3D about it. It's got so many layers. It's almost a two-dimensional shape with three-dimensional bobbles and boobles on it. So it works very well in 3D. And not to say that it doesn't work in 2D, it just works very well in 3D, and 3D kind of needs a win at this point. Mega Absol Z. I think this is the first of the Mega Zs that we're looking at in this video here. So far, we'll have many more. But Mega Absol Z, I really like. I love that we're able to make out so much of it, that so many of the details that have been kind of forgotten or difficult to spot in the 3D version are evident here. I love that that hand is that beautiful, like, almost pinkish red color. I love that. I love the shape of the ear, how it becomes so much more horn? How it becomes so much more angular. I love that to it. Things that are very difficult to see in the 3D render. Only thing that I will say, and this is probably the only time that I'm gonna say it, that rainbow outline, that rainbow lighting effect that they have, makes it a little bit easier to see. The 2D render is quite dark. It is a very dark Pokemon, and when I think of like Pokemon that are ultimately colored in dark texture, one that comes to mind obviously is Corviknight, but the shine of the metal really allows it to stand out. Absol doesn't get that, and so you're really relying on just kind of having to look and decipher some of these areas here because it is so dark, and having those lighting effects from the 3D render really allow those areas and those spaces to showcase better. So I'm gonna have to give this one, oh, it's a toss-up. It truly is a toss-up. Because I think the 2D shows off so many of the non-dark aspects to it, but the 2D shows off so many of those non-dark aspects, but the 3D shows off the full body itself. So it's kind of it's kind of which is more important to the design there, and I feel like they're both equally important. I'm gonna have to give it to 3D. I'm gonna have to give it to 3D because even in the 3D, those variations, those differences, like the hand, wing thing, the horn are visible, not quite as clearly, but they are visible. Here in the 2D, a lot of stuff isn't super visible, so I'm gonna give it to 3D. I feel bad about it. Now, Mega Staraptor is kind of the opposite thing. When I saw it in the 3D, I kind of, in the initial 3D like release or the render, I had to question like, oh, is it a different color? Is it lighter? 2D, that question is off the table, very much so. I love that silvery white color, makes it feel so regal, and the way that kind of the feathers rise up. I was never a huge fan of Staraptor at the outset, but this I think fixes so many things. It makes stuff make sense within the design. It has almost the Native American type of motif to the idea of like how the feathers rise up and how it has the drooping here of like that headdress type of feel, and going with that white color just makes it feel so much more regal. Things that I could not tell in the 3D render announcement. I understand that as we played the game, we learn a lot more about the designs. We get to see so much more of them in different positions and different movements and different lighting. But from the outset of those 3D announcements, I did not know what I was looking at. I felt like there was so much going on, and what was going on, I couldn't tell. So here, I am happy with everything. It is complicated, but it is purposefully complicated. It has a reason to it. Kind of like how Mega Sharpedo is complicated, but there is distinct reason. It's meant to look like a dinosaur. It's meant to look like an ancient shark. Here, it's meant to look like this Native American inspired godly type of bird character, and that makes sense for those complications. Things that could not be seen in their full and totality in that 3D announcement. So 2D takes it for Staraptor. I dig this Pokemon, which is something I never thought I'd say about Staraptor. Mega Lucario Z. I like it. I like both. This at the current moment, I kind of at the outset, it's a tie. But I want to kind of take apart some aspects of it here for a moment, and that is that the 3D version got so much. We got that kind of announcement video with it. We got to see it in action a lot more. So kind of the announcement for the Pokemon wasn't just, hey, here's the 3D render. It was, here's the 3D render in action doing things. And the 2D render, I just love. I feel like there's so much more that I'm able to take in. But while I love both, 3D and 2D, I'm gonna give it a tie. I have to give it a tie. I think that the 3D announcement had so much more going for it. I think that the leaked images, while awful and terrible for the Pokemon Company, allowed us to kind of see what we were getting into, especially in a time when we'd had announced, like, here's Victory Bell and Dragonite. I think people needed to see those leaks because they were like, please give me faith in the company again. So stuff like that, I think that's where that's kind of allowed. We needed to feel something. And with this one, I feel like the Pokemon Company really learned their lesson and were like, here's an announcement video, purposeful, before the leaks came out, that really made the Pokemon feel purposeful, made the design elements and choices, while again, complicated and overly stacked, feel like they needed to be there. It's a tie. It's a tie. Mega Frostlass, my favorite of the new Megas. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. It is so good of a design. But I have to give it to 3D. I have to give it to 3D because, again, like I said, whereas when you have the 3D elements, things become rounder. When things are stretched, I feel like they're stretched more. It feels like the 3D version is so much taller, and it provides a new gravitas to the design. Again, it may just be perspective. It may just be the way that I'm looking at it or the way that it's perceived within my own messed up brain. But I really dig the 3D model more. I think that when it was unveiled, just the tallness, the stretching of it really made it feel like they were going in a very different direction with this Mega over the others, and I like that. Here, I like everything else. It's just not quite as tall. It doesn't have that same stretch factor. Beautiful design. I love both. I'm gonna give it to 3D just because I was so psyched to see the design. Whereas here, again, I know it's my second time seeing it because it's like, oh, well, we saw the 3D render. This is just the 2D render. Here, I'm not quite as psyched. It's not super evident to me of like, oh, this is better. And for that, I think I have to say 3D takes it. Sorry. Mega Heatran, I'm gonna say, oh man, here's the thing. I did a design for Mega Heatran I did a design for Mega Heatran as a thumbnail image. I ended up not using it in a video, but it was a thumbnail image for one of my lives. And it is so spookily close to this design. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about in this video. I just have to point that out. Go to my lives, look at my thumbnails. There's a thumbnail with a Mega Heatran in the background, and it is eerily same like what if it was a crawling open mouth volcano sack thing with the same like way that the teeth rim, the same way that the head is done. I did the same like metal groats on the arms, as well as I think I did like smoke pouring out of the, it's so weirdly close. Check that out. But for this one, I'm gonna have to say that the 2D design does so much better. I think the what I didn't notice when I saw the 3D design was that the color shifted in Heatran so drastically. I did not notice that. And I thought, okay, so it's just Heatran, but bigger, cool. When I saw the 2D, I realized like, this thing is glowing hot. This thing is vibrant red, no longer that muted red kind of, what is it, like bark, redwood bark type of color. This thing is like, boom. And so I think that the 2D really takes it for the announcement images alone. Yeah, great design. Glad I came up with it. Mega Darkrai, 3D's got to take it. That rainbow effect does so much again for these darker Pokemon. That rainbow effect just does so much. The 2D feels like we're missing something. When I first saw it, I felt like, okay, this is one version, where's the other version? Is there gonna be an image for the other version? Or is it, and I realized, while it does have that pinkish eye color, this is pretty much what it looks like when opened. And what kind of made it feel so vibrant and lively in the 3D was the shading texture. So I have to give it to the shading. I have to give it to 3D because that's what made this design, in my opinion, feel so much more exciting. And I was honestly, it's one of the few that I was kind of disappointed when I looked at the 2D. I thought this clearly is not all that they've given us, and it was. But still, I like it. I just like the 3D more. Mega Excadrill, one of the big things that I loved about this design when the 3D was revealed was that he becomes like a little bit beefier. He becomes a little bit more triangle Dorito shaped, and that is completely lost in the 2D. I had to go back and actually look and make sure I didn't imagine it, but yeah, he gets a little bit beefier, a little bit more top heavy in the 3D design, and the 2D wipes that out completely. So I have to give it to 3D just for that. The design changes so drastically away from something that I really enjoyed in that 3D model. So 3D's gonna take it. This one's quick, this one's easy. I love Mega Excadrill, but yeah, I feel like we lost something that I was really excited for. There's a fly. I'm gonna see if I can flick it. I got it. Oh, no. Mega Scolipede goes to 2D completely. It is a drastic and distinct and complicated design, but every part of that complication works and should not be hidden by the 3D effect of that lighting or of pieces sliding over each other. In the 2D version, I get to get the full glimpse of this Pokemon, and oh, it's so good. I'm gonna do it again. Oh, it's so good. So good. The neon coloring is on point and it looks so beautiful against that like maroonish color of the rest, broken up by that gray, which all blends and bleeds together in that 3D model. It's going to 2D. 2D! It's going to 2D. Such a good design. Oh, there are so many left. Mega Scrafty, I'm gonna give it to 3D because of this. Hold on, I know it's a design that's really good and people really like it, but I agree, I agree. The design is good. It's grown on me. I love it. I hated it in the initial look. It has very much grown on me. I dig this little lizard boy. But the 2D sprite feels so washed out, which is saying something and also saying nothing given that it's a primarily white Pokemon. But the orange and the red are so washed out. That gray is so washed out. Maybe that's the intent and I just didn't realize it in the 3D model, but I loved the vibrancy of seeing that 3D model breaking up those white textures and areas across the rest of the design, and that's lost here. It's completely gone. So I'm gonna have to say with Scrafty, I get Scrafty and Scraggy mixed up. With Scrafty, it's gonna go to the 3D model. I hate to say it, but yeah, it's going to the 3D model. I'm a 2D art guy, so I don't want to see 3D win, but it did so much better here. It did so much. This is probably 3D's biggest win. Oh, we gotta speed through these. Mega Electros. Mega Electros. One of the things that I didn't notice about it in the initial 3D design was I'll start here. Some of the things that I love about it in its initial 3D design, some of the things that I absolutely adore. I love that the teeth are pluses and minuses. I love how wavy and wiggly it is. I love that it takes into account the fact that hagfish and eels will sometimes secrete mucus around their bodies, so it utilizes that as part of the design element to make this make sense while also bringing in its pre-evolution type of looks. I love all of that about it. What I feel like we missed out on in the 3D design was this beautiful pink and deep green color scheme. I want to use this in more designs, but that pink and deep green with that yellow breaking it up, and then having that whitish, ghostly bluish white interjected throughout. This is a beautiful color scheme, which was completely overshadowed by that rainbow rim lighting that we saw in the 3D model. It has to go to 2D because everything that I love about this Pokemon, I didn't realize that I loved until I saw it in 2D. The colors are beautiful. Even the pose that they used here feels so much more elegant and feels like there's so much more motion than captured in the actual motion 3D animation. So I love it. 2D, you got it, you win it. I love this design so much more, and I already loved it so much. Mega Chandelure, I'm gonna have to give to 2D. I feel like the 3D version, when we saw it, it was like, cool, you've added a little bit more to Chandelure. When I saw the 2D version, I realized like there's a lot going on here. And the 3D, I felt like just kind of, it felt like it simplified a lot of the purposeful complexity of that chandelier shape, right? And getting to see that here in the 2D with that brass color rendered so beautifully, it has to go to 2D. It is rendered beautifully. The metallic look comes across so much better in the 2D design. The complexity of that chandelier shape is captured so much better in the 2D design than in the 3D design, which is overshadowed by so many other things happening. I have to give it to 2D. To 2D. Yeah, to 2D. I have to give it to 2D. No questions asked. Hands down. The jet keeps flying over. It better not be the same jet. Mega Golurk looks beautiful, whether it be 3D or 2D. However, given that so much of the design is anchored around that energy field about it, that big X on its chest, those wrappings, the expansion of the arms and legs, and that beautiful purple, that yellow that flows into purple is such a beautiful color scheme that goes that I think the 3D element is able to capture that a lot better than the 2D. Like on the 2D, they gave it outline, and I don't know why they did that. I mean, I do know because I draw stuff that's energy based with outline too, but it feels like it solidifies it. In the 2D render, it makes it feel like that X and those energy orbs and the expansion of the arms are almost just like physical build-ons to the design, whereas in the 3D model, you can tell that those are energy. You can tell that is flowing. It feels so much more powerful and impactful in that look. So I have to give that one to 3D. Mega Chestnut, the pose alone. Pose alone. He's a poser, and I love him for it. The pose alone does so much for this design. It is beautiful. He is gorgeous. There's not a ton separating the 3D from the 2D sprite for me. I think they're both really good, but the pose of getting to see him kind of in action, whereas the 3D was just kind of trying to like almost T-pose, show off like, here's the look. Here we get to see him in action more, using that shield as so much more of like an accessory piece to show off the shape of the Pokemon. Makes him feel so much sharper, but also more round. All of the shapes have purpose and all of the shapes have reason within this pose and this pattern. So I know we haven't talked about it a ton yet, but the posing of these Pokemon in these 2D renders is so much better across the board, and it has to be 2D. Has to be 2D. Tutti Frutti. Delphox, it's hard. It's difficult because I feel like there's not a ton different between the 2D and the 3D. The poses are identical. There's no new information gathered color-wise, line-wise, structure-wise that's gathered from this being in 2D that we didn't already see in 3D. So I think I'm gonna have to give it to 3D, if not a tie. I don't know. I don't know. I want to be fair about it. I don't want to give it a tie just because I want to take a point from 3D, but I want to be There's just yeah, I don't know. I will say the 2D, something that I like is 2D gets the colors down better. That red is so vibrant and beautiful. Those dark patterns are so much better. You know what? It's got to be a tie. Because again, 2D didn't add on anything really from the 3D design. The 3D design was beautiful. I think people pretty much agreed that that's one of the best megas that we've gotten. And the 2D doesn't add on a ton. It amps up the color, which is a lot. But at the same time, I think we were all so pumped about the 3D design. I have to give it a tie. I have to give it a tie. Because I'm swaying, the more that I see it, the more that I talk about it, I'm swaying myself towards 2D. But everything that I could say about 2D, 3D had also. So it's got to be a tie. Mega Greninja goes to 2D. It's so weird. Like, Mega Greninja has to go to 2D for a number of reasons, right? It has to go for a number of reasons. One is we're able to see the color so much more clear. That he has become black in color, so much more evident. I think that rainbow outline again kind of warps some things, changes some things. Plus the fact that we're able to see the actual ripples. I had to look at this thing like 3 or 4 times to see the actual ripples of the water on his shuriken is so cool and does so much for the design. It is enigmatic, it is energetic. There's so much going on with a Pokemon who's essentially stationary in their design. I love it, I dig it. I think the 2D works so well for it. It's gotta go 2D just because every time I look at it, I'm able to find more details. And with the 3D, I feel like it's more of a frustrating turn trying to do that same thing. Mega Pyroar, I don't like either of them. I think the 2D does a really good job of really making that mane make a little bit more sense, laying it out pretty well. I think that with it trying to do a fire effect in 3D, it makes it just feel floppy, right? Like it makes the headpiece feel floppy because it's trying to be fire, but it's also trying to be 3D. The limitation of 2D in that it's not moving, it doesn't have that rounded effect. Trying to manufacture fire texture, even if it's meant to just emulate fire texture, like with the mane, I think is difficult in 3D because you're trying to make something that doesn't have a true physical form, have a physical form, while pretending that it's meant to look like something that doesn't. Here, you don't have to deal with that. You can just say 2-dimensional, it looks like fire. Moving on. 2D does it for Pyroar. 2D makes it work, and I honestly really like the design now that I see it in 2D. 3D, I was like, done. It's stupid. That's our stupid Mega. This one in 2D, I actually really, really like, and it kind of makes me feel like it's a bummer that it does have to be in 3D as well. Mega Floette. Floette? Sure. Mega Floette, Mega Floette, I like. There's not a ton going on there. It's just an expansion on the idea. The flower's a little bit bigger. There's so much more that could have been done with the design, but we're not commentating. We're not judging it based on the design. We're judging it based on its translation from 3D to 2D. I love that we're getting to see the top view of it rather than just the bottom view kind of looking up like we saw in the 3D design. So I've got to give it to 2D. It shows off the portion that is most exciting. Mega Meowstic, beautiful. I think that I'm actually surprised now that I think about it that it's not facing directly forward. Again, we've had several megas that are facing directly forward in their 2D sprites or their 2D renders. This one feels like it should. Esper faces directly forward. This is a Pokemon that's cut directly in half, so I don't know, that's weird. I think that the 2D and the 3D both do a great job. I love the vibrancy of that blue. I love it. And it carries over between the two fairly well. So I'm gonna have to say this one's a tie. Sorry, it makes sense. It's cut in half, right? Tie. Here's one to you, here's one to you. It's like the baby, the Solomon's baby, you know the baby? They're like, then we shall cut the baby in half. And so it's a tie, you both win. Also both lose. Mega Malamar is a Pokemon that with, again, those energy circles and those energy type of vibes, as well as like the lighting effect to the body and whatnot, really benefits from 3D. I think, let me see, no, they don't apply. I was gonna ask and see do they apply like a glow to the neon areas, and they don't in the 2D render. So yeah, it's definitely gotta go to the 3D. Everything about it needs 3D to function. Kind of like I said with Feraligatr, where it's like, oh, it looks better in 3D, but ultimately the design itself being that it has to function only in 3D. It's kind of like that. But here with Malamar, 3D services it so well. 3D services it so well. And so having it in 2D feels like we're losing something. And for that, it has to be 3D. If you look at the two and you feel like one is losing a key feature of the other that the other presents, it's got to go to 3D. 3D takes it. Bing, bang, boom. Barbaracle. Again, I said we have several Pokemon that are facing forward. Barbaracle's one. I'm gonna have to give it to the 2D render. The color change from Barbaracle to Mega Barbaracle needs to be highlighted more. And when we have that 3D render, again, with the color and the rainbow, I've brought it up a million times. That rainbow filter is truly the killing blow, I think, for a lot of these Pokemon, especially as that was shown in like their reveal. I think that the color swap, going from a more like ground-based color to this like stony steel, like slate-looking color for the rock works. And I think moving from that brown to that blackish color for the stripes and the arms and the head works so well. It needs to be shown off rather than hidden by some effect in the 3D version. So 2D takes it for you. And again, I say, Mega Dragalge, oh man. So this one is hard because I feel like, kind of like I said with the Mega Frostlass and Mega Emboar, when you have the 3D versions, things kind of amp out, things kind of move, you know, the character become more round, characters become taller. With this, the 3D render made those head things feel so much bigger, so much more space that they took up, so much wavier even in that render. Here they feel small, and it feels almost like this would just be an evolution. The 3D render made it feel like a Mega. So I've got to give Dragalge to the 3D. 3D takes it. Mega Hawlucha, what can I say? This one wasn't announced that got that big crazy video. People loved it. I love it too, but I feel like the pose that they chose for the 2D render loses out on a lot. When I first saw it, I thought that it was like a from above view and his leg was like back. And then I looked closer and I realized, oh, he's just kind of standing with his arms out, which is basically what we get from the traditional Hawlucha stance, if I'm remembering correctly. So it feels like there's not a ton going on here, but with the 3D render, it provided just a little bit more context, provided a little bit more variation in what we're looking at. I could be wrong. I'm not looking at the 3D render of it right now, but I should look that up actually. Let me see. It's basically, no, there's differences. Yeah, with the 2D render, his feet are together, and it makes it feel like he's just kind of standing. With the 3D, his legs are out more, and he feels more heroic, like he's preparing for battle. It's more of like a prepared stance versus like a showcasing stance. And I much prefer the other stance. I prefer the one in the 3D. It's a nitpick, but I feel like it does so much for the design. I'm gonna go 3D. Mega Zygarde, so the things that it's trying to do and trying to accomplish with the 2D, I think are what make it a weaker design. I don't like that it's like all energy. I never did. So getting to see that a little bit more, like seeing like how the feet, if you look at like the little feet there, how like they're wisping away, I don't like it. I hate it. For me personally, I have to say that the 3D does it better because given the obscuring factor of the 3D model, it hides a lot of the things that are part of the design, but that I didn't notice. And now I notice them, and I have to see them forever. And I blame you. 3D takes it. Again, just because it hides the things that I don't like about the design. Mega Crabominable, I feel like there's so much that they're trying to accomplish here, and I think that the 2D version does better because it's a messy Pokemon. And the 3D version, again, makes it look messier, makes it feel like there's so much going on to try and handle, try and get a grasp on, that these Pokemon who have more complication to their design, they really suffer for it, whereas the 2D, it feels cleaner. So I'm gonna give it to 2D just because it feels so much cleaner on the outset of this design as a whole. 2D takes it. Mega Golisopod, biggest glow up, biggest change between 3D and 2D. Oh my God, like, when I first saw the 3D model, I was kind of disappointed. I thought, okay, so it's basically Golisopod, maybe a little bit darker with like the arms splayed out a little bit more. Seeing the 2D render, this is great. The eyes are so vibrant and shining through. It's made so much darker. And where that normally and typically I feel like would be a downside, because it's like, oh, well, now you can't see the patterning to it. It's hard. I don't care. it looks great, and the stance that I put it in shows off all of the differences between the Mega and the typical Golisopod. So across the board, great design. 2D. I got so caught up I forgot to give my verdict. 2D takes that, eats it, cake. Mega Drampa has to go 2D. I didn't realize before like how much more vibrant that the colors are. That green becomes so much more bold. It becomes like longer, and like even the face that they're using to showcase the 2D feels like he's suddenly gotten younger, which I dig. I love that he's like a storm cloud. I didn't understand it when it was first unveiled of like, oh, he's like a storm cloud or something. Why shouldn't he become like a grandpa, like a great grandpa? Looking at it in 2D, I dig it, and it makes a lot more sense to me. So it's a Pokemon design that I didn't understand in the 3D version, but 2D allowed me to get a new understanding and a new grasp on what this look is. So it's gotta go to 2D. 2D provides more context. Oh, we're almost done. Mega Magearna. Mega Magearna has to go 2D. I love it that it feels like there's so much action happening in this design. The arm is open into a cannon, the gears and how they rotate. It feels like this, if anything, it feels like this was a Pokemon who shouldn't work in 2D. It feels like Magearna should have been a Pokemon, especially Mega Magearna, that was designed to function only in the 3D space. But the 2D artwork, I don't know who the artist is for these, who designed these. Hats off, big claps, give them some snaps too. Like, you made a Pokemon that essentially can only function in 3D. It is rounded, it has rotation to it, it has transforming and sliding qualities to it. Looks so good in 2D. It is phenomenal. It has to go to 2D just for the spectacle alone. Mega Magearna, when it was unveiled in 3D, cool, great, I guess that works. Here, I was legitimately blown away by the design. I love it. 2D, for a Pokemon that I never really cared about, I suddenly love 2D. I think Zeraora across the board is bad. Mega Zeraora, I should say. Even Zeraora is kind of just a forgotten Does anyone like Zeraora? Am I even saying it right? And then it got a Mega, and the Mega was so disappointing. I almost don't want to even rank it or talk about it here because it's such a... The 2D model just showcases very much more clearly how much that it should just be a Luxray Mega. I do like how they handled that blue energy. I think that in the art style for it, that blue energy does a lot, but it kind of maybe does a lot in the wrong direction. It does a lot of reminding us, hey, this is just Zeraora, or it's just a Luxray clone, or it's a fusion of the two. It'd be a great fusion of the two. But yeah, for the 3D model, I think that it had a lot on the back foot with people just saying that is just Zeraora. So when the 2D came out, it really solidified that phrasing. We're starting off on the back foot of it. I'm gonna give it a tie because I feel like it doesn't matter, and that's terrible to say for this design, but I can't justly give a ranking or a review on the verses of 3D to 2D with a Pokemon who ultimately just doesn't work. Phalanx 3D was so fun. A rounded Pokemon with big round shields and just the kind of their cute factor. 3D works for them. 2D does so well. 2D looks awesome. This is one that's very difficult. I have to give it to 3D, I think, because it's a Pokemon that takes full advantage of existing in a 3D space. It is orb, it is round, it needs all of those things. I feel like, again, when you have the 3D model, everything gets a little bit puffier, a little bit bigger. I think that the proportions are better and make more sense in the 2D version, but I kind of don't want them to make sense. I want them to feel top heavy. I want them to feel unbalanced. And so 3D does that really well. So maybe the thing that 3D fails at typically does really well with a Pokemon like this. So 3D takes Phalanx. Mega Scovillain is a Pokemon that didn't need to exist. That's just my point. I have to rank it, right? I have to say something about it. I have to, yeah. One of the things that I do enjoy about the 2D is they actually went out of the way in the 2D design to give a glow effect. I don't know if you could tell it here, but they did a glow effect around the pepper on the neck. I haven't really seen that a ton in Pokemon 2D renders. But they did that here, and I think that it adds something to it on the 2D. It's definitely a couple points for the 2D side. Now, the points away from the 2D argument are, I don't like that he's facing this way, right? That he's facing here. It feels weird. Most Pokemon face the other way. Especially with a two-headed Pokemon, I feel like you would probably want the more lively head forward, but I get it. I mean, it's dependent on how you want to view and picture the Pokemon, but I don't know. I feel like that's a point away. I'm gonna have to give this one, I want to give it a tie, but I'm gonna give it to 2D. Again, just for the sake of understanding, like, hey, listen, we've got to kind of break our own rules and allow this glow factor on here, because it brings a new concept to the design going from 3D to 2D, which we don't see very often. We don't see them going from 3D to 2D and introducing new facets and new functions and things to the design. You usually see it the other way. So it's got to be 2D. This was a risk, and if you're gonna take any risk with Skull Villain, I'm glad that it paid off, I guess. So 2D. Mega Glamora, I don't know. I think one of the biggest key factors that it has for it is that debris that it lets out, that I feel like is really hard to spot in the 3D version, but really adds some flavor, some context, and some story to the 2D version. So it's got to go to 2D for me, just because, again, I feel like we're adding something here that is in the 3D version, but is difficult to spot. It's a little bit harder to see. Here, it's so much clearer, so much more evident, and it feels like it is such a big facet of the design. So 2D takes it with Glamora. I hardly remember this Pokemon. Tatsugiri, again, a Pokemon that has so much going on, so much complication to the design in some great ways, some phenomenal ways. The design of the Pokemon is awesome. Mega Tatsugiri is one of my favorite designs because it is so goofy, and the fact that it has various mega forms is so much fun. I really think that given that there is kind of that difference of, hey, it could be one of several different types of Mega, as well as the distinct features of each of the Tatsugiris within it, in the 3D model, it can become a little bit muddied. So the 2D, I think, takes it because it makes it so clear. They've amped up those colors. The Pokemon Company has really been making their colors more vibrant lately, and I think that really services Tatsugiri's 2D render. So 2D for Tatsugiri. Next up is Baxcalibur, or Mega Baxcalibur. And I have to say, of the announcements, again, we see them in different positions, different proportions, different lighting, sizes, shapes, whatever, within the gameplay. But in the announcements of them, Mega Baxcalibur was so disappointing to so many people who were like, the spike just gets bigger. But on the 2D, I was able to notice, like, oh, the head changes. The spike gets bigger, and it also gets the hilt on the front. Oh, it's a sword going through the oh, that's good. All stuff that I didn't notice on the initial reveal of the Pokemon. Stuff that I had to see it in the two-dimensional version to say, oh, this is a full expansion of the idea. This feels like a Mega. I could only really say that once I saw this version. So it's gotta go to 2D for Mega Baxcalibur. Now there is one more Mega that we would love to get to, but the problem is I got an email from like the Pokemon.com that said like, hey, just a heads up, we now have all of our Megas in 2D render. And I went through and I grabbed them for the video and I pulled them up so that I could have them to reference and to look at as we compared. They didn't put Mega Garchomp Z. So Mega Garchomp Z, maybe by the time this video comes out, it's up. But the Pokemon Company lied to me. They were like, we have all of them out. They didn't. Mega Garchomp Z wasn't there. I went to Google, searched it up, could not find Mega Garchomp Z's render. So maybe I'll come back and do just that one. But in the meantime, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget that you can check out where you can support the channel down below. I also have my G Fuel link there if you're interested. Great energy supplement, great energy drinks. You actually get 30% off by using code STERN, S-T-E-R-N. I wanted to make it easy for you guys to remember. I have the names flashing on either side, actually probably just over here, of the people who support the channel, whether those be YouTube members or Patreon supporters. Each get different stuff, whether those be Photoshop files, high resolution, I do that every video. High resolution images of Pokemon that I've drawn in other videos, or early access to videos like this. You can find all of that there. This is kind of a lax easy video, kind of fun. I'm trying to do more of these on Monday, so let me know in the comments if you enjoy these, or if they're terrible, and who your favorite Mega was. Did I get these right? Do you feel like the 3D were overall better, or the 2D were overall better? Let me know. I'd love to hear from it. And with all that said, sounds like you know where to find me. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye. Stop recording! Stop recording!